Yippee-Ki-Yay, mother.
Welcome to the party, pal.
Welcome to Yippee-Ki-Yay, mother podcast. I'm Ralph Quattrucci.
I'm Sean Paul Murphy.
I'm Debbie Murphy.
I'm Michelle Wojciechowski.
I'm Brad Barowie.
I'm John Quattrucci.
I'm Drew Gould.
Wow, these are a lot of introductions. Good job, everybody.
And now everyone who was watching is gone.
God,
That's
did you
9 minutes. We're done.
how was your week, everyone? Everybody good?
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
All right, so let's start off with a little.
Brad's like, yeah, sure, we'll go with
Yeah,
that.
well, the
It
Ravens
was a
lost
long
this week
day
against
today.
Kansas City. Show us your hat, Brad. There you
Kansas
go.
City's
Baltimore Ravens.
tough. They're going to be tough.
Yeah, they're tough.
That's okay. Ravens are good too. They don't have to play them anymore.
All right, let's do a little round of what did you watch today? This week, I mean. Let's start with John.
Well, I brought up an Elvis movie last week. I watched another Elvis movie this week.
God.
He doesn't get a lot of credit for his acting because some of his movies are pretty bad. But one of the better ones was Jailhouse Rock. He was really good in it.
We were
I
watching
loved
it
that
too.
movie. And one story about the woman who played the leading lady died before the movie was released in a car crash. And he never watched the movie because of it. But it's one of his best. It's not as good as King Creole, but one of his best performances.
Yeah, I was going to say
Music was
that.
great in it. Absolutely.
Wait, he could never watch the movie, or
Yeah,
she
he couldn't watch it.
Oh, I know she
Well,
couldn't.
she couldn't
he
because
could.
she was dead.
Well, yeah, she couldn't watch it. Yeah, that's a good
All right,
call.
so another Elvis pick. Are you going to do Elvis every week? Is this going to be your corner?
You asked me what I watched. I told you.
Right.
At least I'm not talking about Clue.
But please don't preface it every time with nobody thought he was a good actor, but because that's what you did it last time too. So that's fine. Next, Sean and Debbie, your square is up.
Okay, this is a joke, but right after Jailhouse Rock came Rebel Without a Cause.
You're tearing me apart.
Didn't you trash on that movie last week?
We were trashing it. Then, ironically, it was on.
It was
so we were.
on, and we were like, oh my God, we were just laughing so hard. We're thinking about Wojo.
Well, not every movie can be Spitfire Grill, so.
Boy.
Hey.
All right, so that's what you watched. Oh my God! All right, Drew, you're up.
Well, there was some programming on Tuesday night that I watched, but I'm not going to talk about it.
No, you're not. None of us. No.
So I watched something else that was actually surprisingly good and kind of upsetting in a good way. I watched The Outpost, which is Rod Lurie's new movie. He's that film critic turned director. He did. I'm looking at his credits. He did The
Last
Contender
Castle.
and The Last Castle, and he actually did a TV show about FBI agents called Line of Fire, like 15 years ago. That was really good. And this is based on Jake Tapper's book about a really awful battle in Afghanistan. For some reason, the military decided to put a base in the bottom of a valley surrounded by mountains, which surprisingly enough were one day filled with hundreds of Taliban fighters. Yeah. So the movie is it's okay for the first hour or so, and then they start the battle, and it was frankly was more intense than I expected. And some of the really crazy stuff that's in it is really what happened and how it happened. And a bunch of the guys that were there, including Medal of Honor winners and stuff, were on set consulting, and that was interesting. And it also has Clint Eastwood's son, Scott Eastwood, who's very good. It has Mick Jagger's son, who I think is Jack, and it has Mel Gibson's son, Milo Gibson, and they're all good, which is nice. But it also stars Caleb Landry Jones, who is in Get Out and 3 Billboards. And a bunch of stuff, and he's like a wonderful, odd character. Good.
Who's his daddy?
He's great. Who's what?
Who's his dad?
daddy?
I presume it's Mr. and Mrs. Jones, but I don't know if Mrs. Jones took his last name. I'm not sure. And so I would recommend that. It was one of those rent it for $2.49 type of things. So I enjoyed that. And the other thing that I started watching, which I know I'm late on, it's spelled PEN 15, but it's basically penis on Hulu.
Right.
That show is
By
so
like the two
funny.
33-year-old women who play 15-year-olds.
But they sell it. Like it's really
How old they are?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about two. I guess they're in 7th grade or something. But basically, these 2 girls that are friends in 7th grade, and it is a cringy riot. And it's been a nice antidote for some of the other things you could watch on TV this week. I recommend.
So wait a minute. So are these
penis? Let me get that on the record. I recommend penis.
Yeah. Hey, so do I.
Oh,
Nice.
God.
Oh,
Okay.
now we're getting all
Well,
creepy. Here
since
we
Drew
go.
did 2 there, we're gonna have to take a square away. So no, I'm kidding. Wojo and Brad, what do you got?
We watched Us.
No,
Oh, yeah.
The new
Boy,
Jordan Peele.
boy,
The new
that
Jordan Peele,
just
yeah.
came out 8 years ago.
Hey,
I'm kidding.
Yeah, I
I'm
only
kidding.
saw it
It was
last
out
night.
last year.
I know. I'm joking. And did you enjoy it?
Well,
It was all right, but it wasn't great.
here were my reactions. First, it was suspenseful and I was a little scared. Then I was really angry during the movie. And then I was just like, this is full of crap.
so what did you think of it though?
Honestly, I didn't find it that scary.
I-
Honest. But it was not, I don't know, it didn't really grab me that much.
Just didn't.
Make any sense?
There's a reveal at
And it
the
kind
end.
of dragged for a while, too.
It did drag.
It dragged.
But there's this reveal, kind of like an M. Night Shyamalan thing at the end. And I turned to him and I said, that's the reveal. That's stupid.
By that point, we didn't really care.
We didn't care.
Well, and it kind of the reveal you could figure out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, but again, coming off of Get Out, the expectations were pretty high for that one too.
Mhm.
I don't think it had the same impact that Get Out did.
Yeah.
No.
But
This
I
was
enjoyed
more
it. I
like
thought it was
try
good.
to figure it out.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty good. All right. Well, I saw on Netflix, which is streaming right now, a movie called The Devil All the Time, starring Tom Holland
Oh, how would you like that?
and Robert Pattinson. Is that how you say his name?
Yeah.
Pattinson?
Pattinson, yes.
I thought it
Batman.
was fantastic. It's a slow burn. It's about a 2 hour, 10-minute movie. And there's a narrator that comes on that says, everybody you see in this film is going to be connected in the end. And in fact, that's what happens. It kind of jumps back and forth between time and events. So you see events from a couple of different angles.
Mhm.
And just a well-written film. And the kid, Tom Holland, did a really nice job. It's all about religion. It's all about an old town where a lot of people, everybody's bad. Essentially, everybody has the devil in them. And it's a pretty amazing film.
Devil inside.
I heard the
No, it's called The Devil All the Time.
I heard Holland and Patterson were really good in that.
Patterson was very good. Holland was very good. All of them.
Holland
yeah,
won an
it's a
Umbrella
super
Academy.
movie.
Who?
Tom Holland.
No, he's Spider-Man. Tom Holland
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he looks young. He looks like a young
is
kid.
20.
but,
I think he's 22.
great film, and you stick through
And
it
Sparkly
and
Vampire,
watch it right
right?
to the end because it's pretty good. It's also got the guy who was in Iron Man, not Iron Man.
But the other guy, Michael Caine.
No,
the
it's
other guy.
the friend of Captain America. What's that? Bucky.
Oh,
Oh, Sebastian Stan.
Yeah, he was in this as well. Very good.
I really like him.
And so take a look. I mean, it's kind
I
of
wanted to see
depressing,
that.
What's
Kind
it
of
called?
serious,
The Devil
but it's
all the
well done. All
The
right, well
devil all the
today
time.
the devil all the time. Okay.
today's film
Got a scars.
that Sean has brought to our table is a 1971 film. 71?
Yes.
What's it called?
The Hospital
The
by
Hospital.
Paddy Chayefsky.
Right.
And if you're a writer alone, you should be won over by the title of the film because it's The Hospital up there by Paddy Chayefsky. It's about the only time that a writer other than Shakespeare gets the proprietary credits. The only time a screenwriter does. And shall I go into it?
You may. Do we? Well, I have a preview. Should we show the preview trailer?
We'll
Trailer?
show the preview first. How about
the
that?
trailer. We'll show the trailer.
Dr. Schaefer? Listen, did you know that Dr. Schaefer was in room 806 because he's dead?
Rose, what the hell are you talking about? You know what the hell she's talking about?
No.
I'm afraid I don't understand.
What Dr. Schaefer? Our Dr. Schaefer?
Oh, Dr. Schaefer, the one who's always grabbing everybody's...
Was he sick?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Now, what in hell am I going to tell this boy Schaefer's parents? That a substitute nurse assassinated him because she couldn't tell the doctors from the patients on the floor? My God!
Ladies and gentlemen, you are about to be admitted to the hospital.
Do you carry Blue Cross, Blue Shield, Mr. Mitgang, if you don't mind? Do you have your card with you? Do you know your number?
There's no pulse, doctor.
What's the pressure?
There's no blood pressure, doctor.
Well, then, yes, he just butchered another one of my patients.
We got a witch doctor in 806.
I built up one of the best damn departments of medicine in the world.
You may be crazy, doctor, but
I don't think this is your patient.
What the hell are you talking about?
I'm very sorry, Doctor. There's a very nasty one in the OR.
What in the hell is it? Some kind of plague?
What happened?
No, man.
Well, I don't know what happened.
A man comes into this hospital in perfect health. And in the space of 1 week, we chop out one kidney, damage another, reduce him to coma, and damn near kill him.
George C. Scott in the hospital, where everything that happens is a matter of life and death.
I don't suppose you'd like to call next of kin? No, thanks.
This is the emergency room. One of the doctors just died of a heart attack.
What the hell is going on around here? Every time I try to find somebody in this hospital, they either died of a heart attack in emergency or anesthesia shock in an operating room.
Well, what are you suggesting, Doctor? You think we have a mad killer stalking the halls of the hospital?
Call the medical examiner.
Go ahead.
You better do that now. You better call the precinct station house as well.
Cardiac arrest, Holly 8.
We have an emergency here.
We have established the most enormous medical entity ever conceived, and people are sicker than ever. We cure nothing. We heal nothing.
George C. Scott in the hospital.
Well, I got to say one thing. I really hate that trailer.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. But these old trailers kind of, you know how they go. And R.I.P.
Music.
We must say R.I.P. Diana Rigg as well, right?
Yeah.
First American film, right?
First American film, and she just passed away. So
That's
there you go.
Dame Diane Rigg.
Right. So, okay, Sean, tell us a little about this film.
Well, you know, I'll say my history of it. I first saw it when it was released. It was the second feature at a double feature. I was 10 years old. Usually we were asleep by the time the second film came on, but I was up. And it really grabbed my attention. I can't say I understood it then. I think I understand it better now. But I was kind of confused during the initial screening of it. But to me, hardly any film says the 70s quite as much as this film, because it has such a strange, idiosyncratic viewpoint. It is definitely a film that could never be made today. And I also really admire this script by Paddy Chayefsky, a 3-time Oscar winner. He's the only screenwriter to win 3 Oscars for writing with solo credits. And he was the big guy in charge. He had creative control. He picked the director. He picked the actors. He had to fight for George C. Scott. They had some other choices. And, you know, this was his baby. It's an odd, angry, dark film. You know, it couldn't be made today. It is very much, if you look at it plot note by plot point, it is very much a blueprint for his more famous film to follow, Network. You know, it has a lot of the strange idiosyncrasies in that one and all. And it also follows some of the same things you would see later in Altered States, his last film, which would ultimately, he'd take his name off of because he lost control of that film. But this film is about a doctor, Herbert Bach, played by George C. Scott. He's in a midlife crisis. He has just left his wife. He has thrown his son out of the house, a shaggy-haired Maoist, if I'm not mistaken. And he is estranged from his daughter. He was a once brilliant doctor. He's head of medicine at a large teaching hospital in New York City. And ultimately all he has is his work, and his hospital is collapsing around him in madness and dysfunction. You know, people are dying because people aren't paying attention.
And somebody's murdering people at the same time.
Yeah, but they're only setting them up to die. You know, essentially he's the killer,
right.
Is setting, you know, is letting the hospital kill them.
By incompetence.
By incompetence. You know, so essentially this man is, you know, which is an odd plot point to go. And probably the strangest thing about this film, most people like this film. If you read the critics' review and other people talking about, like it up until the middle of the movie where he has this big scene with Diana Rigg, and where in a drunken, he's about to commit suicide. He's about to shoot himself up with potassium. And she comes in essentially trying to seduce him. and sort of ridicules his angst and his melancholy. And then when she comes back in and interrupts his suicide, he rapes her. And only in a film in the 70s can a man rape a woman and that be the cathartic event that helps get his life back in gear.
Well, the other hospital show that happened in was General Hospital with Luke and Laura.
Yeah.
Same thing.
But
yeah,
both those actors have said they regret that whole storyline because it was considered the big romance of the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And
you're talking about General Hospital. Yeah, they should. But
I don't think
this was a shocker.
This
was a shocker when he does that. And then you find out the next morning that she enjoyed it, and they 3 more times, and he was, they fall in love. I mean, yeah. So anyway, but that's the 70s, right?
Yeah. Well, it's also life in a hospital. I think my wife would say that there's a lot of tension in hospitals that sometimes lead to spontaneous
rapes.
Yeah, but not rape.
Well,
but
here's the thing. This movie is so lifelike. I mean, it's just exactly what sometimes happens in a hospital with the mistakes and all. The realism is just, incompetence goes way deep, and one little mistake leads to the next mistake, and it's a trickling effect. You hear these things. You also hear about, the stuff that goes on in the hospital, this stuff that between human beings, when you're so full of angst and you're working so hard, and hospital work is really hard, grueling, tense, work. So, sometimes that the tenseness, the extent of the hard work that you're doing, and then you go,
and the next thing you know,
you never know.
You're raping your wife? What the
Yeah,
hell?
well, podcasting is just as stressful.
Oh my God.
Give it to me.
All right. Well, I mean, okay.
It's just really realistic. And I was watching the movie, and the next movie that came on the series, the next series of film is St. Elsewhere. A lot of the actors are in St. Elsewhere as a TV show. And I think that probably was the impetus for St. Elsewhere, those events.
But then again, not only do you have a rapist, you have a totally mad religion. It takes a weird religious turn with Bernard Hughes being the paraclete of the Kavorka and the angel of the bottomless pit, which is also something you'll see later in Network.
Right.
When Howard Beale thinks that Ned Beatty is God.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of these are common themes, and there's a lot of religiosity in Chayefsky's film. That one, he did what I've been really trying to see is a version of Gideon, the biblical story, which he did as a play and a TV movie, but I was unable to find it anywhere. So I was very curious about that, and also of course the religion is cynical in these two films, but anybody who saw Altered States, that was also about trying to find some sort of spirituality, through looking inside. So he was going on a strange sort of journey, Paddy Chayefsky. And because he was the auteur of his movies until Altered States, he could take you on it without too much studio interference. And to me, that's what this movie is at. This is a big budget, big release Hollywood movie that was very idiosyncratic. And the other thing, I'll let other people talk in a minute, but I really love the performances. Not only this, to me, this is my favorite performance by George C. Scott. And, I feel he's amazing. I think everybody's great. There's a lot of really strong little performances.
They're all in there, yeah.
And there's a lot of life into these characters. In fact, one of my favorite scenes is the one they opened up the trailer with, where the nurse goes to the nurse's station. Are you aware that Dr. Schaefer is in 706 because he's dead? What are you talking about, Perez? Dr. Schaefer, is in 706 and he's dead. Our Dr. Schaefer? I didn't know he was sick. That is a scene that would be immediately cut from a movie. Now, people would, a studio or a producer would look at that scene and says, this scene, nothing happens. She should go out and say, Dr. Schaefer's in here, he's dead. But instead you have this it's sort of like they're having this conversation while it's like, they're not even that concerned. It's sort of like, well, maybe we should go and look. You know, it's like, but you know, if you look at George C. Scott, he has a genuine relation. His character has a genuine relationship with pretty much everyone in the film. Like when he comes in that day and the old nurse, and he asks her what's going on. You can tell he likes her, that they have a relationship, that he's known her for years, and she's just like, I think you better talk to Mrs. Whatever instead. You know, you can tell that nurse doesn't want to get involved. And I believe when he goes into the room, there's the upset nurse who had probably given the doctor his, the fatal thing. And, he like pats her on the back and like reassures her. And then he reams out everybody else,
Yeah.
But you see in his relationship how he interacts with pretty much all the characters in the film, that it's a great performance in the sense that you think, at least I do think it's a real guy going through a real world that he helped create.
Sean, I got to ask you something. You saw that movie on a double bill at 10 years old.
Yeah.
Do you remember what the other film was?
I think it was a Planet of the Apes film.
Well, this was billed as, when you look at the marquee or the, it's billed as a comedy, a drama, a mystery, crime thriller, right? It had all those headings, right? Very dark, very black humor in this one.
Oh my God.
And you drop right in on George C. Scott, and you already know that he's at the end of his rope. Yeah. That first scene where he's smoking cigarettes and he's getting the call about the Schaefer being dead, right?
Now, I think that's a great scene. It's hard to pull off one of these one-person telephone calls. I like how distracted he is, and he's not even, much like the nurses at the nurses station, he's not really comprehending what they're saying, and it's sort of like, I just got to get in. I'll come in.
Well, they all ask the same question. I didn't know he was sick. They all. All right, let someone else speak. Who? Joe and Brad, do you guys like it?
No.
Oh boy, I don't know how I knew that when I saw your face over there. What?
My favorite part of the movie was the 20 minutes I fell asleep during.
Oh my God.
Which part was that?
It was before the rape, and he was just going off on this diatribe, and then I woke up and I said, what's going on? And Brad said, well, he's raping her, And I was okay, great,
Just very matter of factly, Brad.
Pretty much how everybody in that movie was.
Nobody gave a shit that people were dying. They were like, oh, okay.
Because okay, I'm not, go ahead. Keep going.
I will say one person gave a shit. The old guy.
No, the lady with the Blue Cross Blue Shield numbers. Frances
Sturhagen.
Right.
Drummond,
the press lady.
Which I thought was brilliant by Chayefsky. Drummond, when he describes the operating room, the emergency room, when he's talking about all the inflictions in there, because he cared about those people. And they pan completely around the room and they come to him and he's actually crying. He is literally like the only person who sees these people as individuals. And he's a psychotic killer,
Well, and you had that whole side plot with the housing development getting bought by the hospital. So all these other things were coming in.
What?
That was actually something that really bothered me, because I thought we were going to do Johns Hopkins Hospital, the movie about this multi-billion-dollar hospital, spreading through this low-income neighborhood and all this stuff. And it's interesting that some of the people that are in this discussion, you really see that these are real humans in these real situations. And I thought that none of these people felt real to me.
What, the demonstrators?
Just the whole movie. I'll talk about.
Oh, really? I really thought
that's exactly how we.
It's funny. I had the complete opposite feeling.
But the people that are protesting, they are just another problem to get through the day at the hospital. And
they are exaggerated characters. There's no question. Everybody's exaggerated, including.
It's a comedy.
Right, including Diana Rigg, who was a total
There was no comedy
flake.
in that movie. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, I laugh all the way through that movie.
That was funny in that movie.
You were talking about the scene where she was out there talking about Dr. Schaefer being dead. I'm thinking that was a hard. I'm glad that scene couldn't be made because it's horrible. Well, first of all, she goes and finds him and she's like, oh, he's dead. Oh, well.
Well, how about the poor bastard that all this stuff's happening in his room and he thinks he's hallucinating all this stuff? I mean, they're telling him he's hallucinating.
Another movie.
Every time somebody died, people were just like, oh, he just died.
Well, because
I hallucinated an
else is
Indian.
dead. No, I couldn't give a crap about these people because they didn't care about anybody.
But the thing was, I understand there's a difference between healthcare workers being, numbed to people dying. But this was like
no sense of urgency.
Well, you better go over because the guy in the corner's dead.
It's a comedy. It's making a statement.
That was my god.
That was not
making a
I
statement.
did not
It's
see that
showing.
as comedy
it was
at
horrible.
all.
When
the only movie
when-
I have disliked more that we have reviewed was The Counselor. And
wow.
actually, I liked this more than.
Now, I will
no, I
say-
didn't like this more than it. Well,
I mean,
Wow.
Wait a minute. I need to know
good.
the answer to this question.
outside of George C. Scott, I didn't really think there were a whole lot of really good performances. I felt like
Bernard Hughes is the guy when he does that line at the end about, and I buzzed the nurse and I knew I had an hour, right?
Yeah.
He says, I buzzed the nurse. So I had an hour to go do what I needed to do. They're making a statement about what goes on in hospitals, just what Debbie was saying, that it's crazy. People are running around. Yeah, death must be, you just must have to be able to shelve it and put it aside because it's happening
that's
all
not how
over
I
the
see
place.
people shelving it. I see it. People, you have to kind of disassociate with it and not take everything personally, but you still also have to take it seriously. I didn't feel like anybody was taking anything
was
seriously.
No, I think George C. Scott was taking it very seriously.
it's fun. Yeah.
Well, George C.
He
Scott
was.
took everything seriously.
Yes.
George C. Scott, I didn't think
He did scream his lines a little, but
What
He
are you
always does.
saying?
He always does that.
have you seen him in Exorcist 3? The way he does that? Same
No, I have not seen
It's
that.
I've
awesome.
never
He's
seen
great.
any
He's
of the
great.
Exorcist
Paid me, I wouldn't
movies.
see that movie.
No,
Look,
Exorcist 3 is good.
George C. Scott is drinking behind Sean right now. I wanted to. I wanted to say.
He's about to rape her.
I think what Debbie said that this is real. I totally 100% buy it. I mean, the tone of the way they portray the hospital, the bureaucracy. I mean, that is like classic absurdist. It's out of like Russian literature or something. That part of that the entire medical system and modern life and all the things that Paddy Chayefsky writes about in the 70s, that they dehumanize us. That movie absolutely it does it. It delivers that feeling. My problem was that it didn't, and I'll talk about the rape part later because I have some pretty strong thoughts about that too, obviously. But
Talk about it now.
the people, I'm not ready to talk about that.
Let him work.
Okay.
Let himself work himself up to rape.
But
Jesus.
yeah, that's real funny. But
Sorry.
there's all these human things happening, and there's all these real things happening. But I feel like Paddy Chayefsky is trying to give you his ideas to such an extent that the people don't communicate like real people. Like George C. Scott's performance is amazing. It's really wonderful. But I never forgot that I was seeing George C. Scott doing a crackerjack monologue by Paddy Chayefsky. I mean, I've seen a lot of his movies. I think Network is spectacular. I
I
think
love
Mark
Network.
is one of the most sweet, charming movies. I love Ernest Borgnine. Like this is really incredibly talented people across the board, above and below the line, working at full throttle. But the whole notion that this is real. The one thing I need in a movie is a character that I can connect to. I don't have to like them. It's not simple like that. But I felt like there weren't really any real people, even though there were things that I could relate to that do really happen and that are really happening. And also, it's sometimes you see a movie and you're like, is this supposed to be? Does this filmmaker think that it's going to be their last movie? Because they stuff everything into it, which sometimes you in the first movie, and that's not necessarily a criticism, but it's so much stuff happening at once. I kind of feel like I'm not sure where he wants to go with this. And then you have the rape scene, which they use a code word the next morning when Diana Rigg, the victim of a drunken rape, says, "You ravished me." That's nonsense. I have my own experiences with suicide and mental health, and never have I ever encountered anyone who said, "You know what would help you with your depression? You should rape someone." Because that really, it didn't take me out of the movie like, oh, this is a bad movie or something is wrong with the whole idea of this, because it felt very 70s, it felt very dated, and I think it's fine that scene would be more criticized now. So I'm not looking at it with eyes and saying, oh well, they can't make it today, so I'll write it. I'll make an excuse for it. But you have a whole bunch of people that aren't acting like people, and then you have something really horrible happen because other characters are having horrible times. And look, she likes it, and she should give them an escape, and they should go live in the mountains, and they'll have babies. And it just felt really, I don't know, just disrespectful and ugly.
Well, she was crazy though too.
Well, but that's not an excuse either. I mean, I was watching this movie and I'm thinking, well, basically, the entire history of the founding of this country is the rape of Native Americans. And you can rape women who have had sex with Native Americans because they need to be punished for doing that. Like,
well, I don't think they meant that. I don't think that.
I mean, we can't. I mean, oh my God, we can.
It doesn't matter whether they meant it. I'm telling you, this is what.
Joe, had you ever seen this? You had not seen this before?
I've never seen this movie before. It has tons of actors in it that I like. It has a lot of things going for it as a movie. I mean, look, the fact, as Sean mentioned, the fact that a writer got a possessory credit.
Yeah.
That never happens. That's unbelievable.
Wasn't he the narrator too? He was the narrator, wasn't he? Yeah, he was.
Yeah, I mean, he's a fascinating guy. He had this incredible career. He died at 58. I mean, he's somebody that could still be.
Oh, I didn't know he died that young.
Yeah,
He didn't want to go to the hospital.
That's very young, by the way.
Well, we understand why after this movie.
Treatment. Yeah.
But
this whole movie was based on an experience his wife had at the hospital. That's why he wrote it.
I think it's the lack of really feeling like these are real people, which the whole rape scene and afterwards really threw into relief. That's what kept me from really connecting with it, even though I was admiring all the moving parts and everything. Like, did you ever see the movie Crash? Not the crappy Oscar-winning one, but the one about people who get off sexually from car accidents by David Cronenberg.
Yeah.
That is a really bizarre movie that maybe I'll bring to the podcast one day. But one of the biggest problems with that movie is that it has all these different people that are doing crazy things, like having sex in car wrecks and getting off watching car wrecks from historical perspectives, and having sex while cars are crashing and all this stuff. There's no character. It's supposed to be James Spader, but there's no character that says, I'm going to take you into this world, and I'm the one that you're going to relate to because I'm shocked, or I know this isn't normal. And I couldn't figure out if that character was supposed to be George C. Scott or not, because he's in real pain. And he's spent his whole life working and feels like he has nothing for it, and his marriage is falling apart and all these things. And then he's like, well, I feel so much better because I raped. And it just doesn't, it just throws me off so much.
Understood. I mean, it definitely, that scene took me out of the movie for a bit. It's one of those where you go, okay, A, nobody would ever do that now. And B, yeah, it took me away. It's like, wow, they're really making light of this. But what I took out of this whole film was the black comedy about the hospitals, but ultimately the two main guys that walked back into that hospital after all this shit was the administrator and George C. Scott. And George C. Scott, in the middle of that rape scenario, gives her this whole speech about the only thing that's keeping him alive is work. He doesn't care about his erections. He doesn't care about his wives and all that. All he cares about is work. It's the only thing that makes him feel like a man. And that hospital administrator who's dealing with all those demonstrators who gets up and quit.
Right.
There's that scene where he and George C. Scott at the end, and they go, you know what? We just got to get back in there. It's our responsibility. This hospital is our responsibility.
Well, let me ask you a question then, because if George C. Scott is saying, and he's obviously not happy about it, but he's saying work is the only thing that gets me through. And at the end of the day, even though other things have gotten me excited and made me feel more alive than I have in a long time, etc., he goes back to work. Do you think Paddy Chayefsky is saying, that's good? Because to me, that feels horrifically tragic. Although
I think he is saying that's good.
I think he's saying that's good. I think he's saying that's a noble guy. That guy could have gone to the mountains of Mexico with that beautiful woman and chose not to. Yes, he raped her. I get it. That screws up the whole scenario here. But
she was also portrayed as, she was not real. There was nothing real about her. She was like the first, what's that phrase that the manic pixie dream girl? She's like decades before that was coined by Nathan Rabin. There's a manic pixie dream girl. There's nothing real about her. I mean, the fact that she's played by Diana Rigg makes her incredibly gorgeous and exotic. And then she's like, here, I'm an escape hatch into this world of peace and all these things. But he says, I'm going to go back to work because I'm going to be responsible. But you've spent the whole movie showing me that you being responsible for work doesn't matter, and that people are going to die and the system is bigger than you are. That, to me, that's not a bad thing for the movie to say. It's just really tragic. I mean, it's like The Wire. It doesn't matter if you're a cop or a drug dealer. The system is what's bigger than all of you, and the system is what makes the difference.
But it gets down to the one thing, which is, both those guys saying, you know what, we're responsible for something, we're going back in. That's how I felt. John, John, you're nodding.
Biggest statement was, he goes, for the middle class, love doesn't triumph, responsibility.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
From a man who just raped a girl.
And a lot of times, here's the thing, you have situations in your life, things are depressing, things are hard to take. But if you can work and I just remember working doubles and triples. And, when I was going through tough times, hard times, And just really work was the thing that kept me going, because I didn't have time to think about suicide I did think about it, but work, double shifts, triple shifts, weekends, straight 48-hour working. But then when you do stuff like that, you're dangerous because you're not working on full, mental total capacity, but you're doing what you can to survive, to not suicide, because it's really hard to live sometimes.
Well, I'm sure after the Fade to Black, a week later, he's got the needle with potassium in his arm again.
Yeah, it's
so. Right. I understand, but it faded to black. So that's John. What did you think?
Well, after
No music
the joyfulness of Singing in the Rain, it was so good to watch something.
This was a nice palate cleanser. I agree with you.
Appreciated that.
Good palate cleanser.
There's not enough depressing things going on in the world, so I really appreciated that, John. And it's been a lot.
Let's all pretend that everything's
like once on TV.
Good Ship Lollipop,
and I didn't remember a lot of it. But it's interesting listening to everybody. Because I don't think I looked at it quite the same way. Look, it's not a movie that I would seek out. It's not my cup of tea. I like to go to the movies to laugh, to be entertained.
You didn't laugh?
I did not find this an entertaining movie. I thought George C. Scott's performance was amazing. The highs and lows that he hit, I know it's a lot of highs for people, but that scene where he was talking to her, where he went on a monologue, that was a pretty intense scene. And Ralph, to your point, his whole explanation was the thing that kept him going. It wasn't just work. It was caring for the people in the hospital. That's a little bit different than it's about work. That's why at the end they went back. It's about the people in the hospital. And he felt like he was the voice of reason in this chaotic thing that was happening throughout the movie. The only thing, they call it a black comedy. And I look at MASH as a black comedy.
Yeah.
But MASH was funny. With some real dark stuff in it. This had, the only thing that was funny was when a doctor would die, there'd be two people talking about another doctor died. That was the only thing that I found a little bit funny.
Well, Network, he did Network as well. And
this is not a comedy. It's just not.
No, it's black humor.
It's tough to watch. Now, as far as.
I think it was black humor.
I didn't see it. I didn't see it as a black comedy.
Nothing in there struck me funny.
The lady walking around with the Blue Cross Blue Shield number all the time.
I saw it as a drama because that to me was Debbie, you tell me that was more real than anything.
Yeah.
When she's trying to get everyone's insurance card, right?
But it was a little funny. But
the thing about the rape,
it's so familiar. It's you see all the characters in that movie as typical.
Right. So I think that's something you would normally see. But the rape scene, to go to that. And I think I looked at it a little bit differently. I'm not disagreeing with how anyone perceived that, but it almost like, I know I'm going to get beat up for this, but I'm going to say it anyway. It was almost like she saw what was happening with him and definitely felt like he was going to kill himself. That's why she came back. And in a way, because she was a very, very strong character. And I think in a way, and I have to word this the right way. I think to a point, she almost, I hate to say this, I don't think she wanted it to happen, but I think she set it up in a way that it was her way to save his life and get him out of this funk. Now, it came across as an ugly rape, but the way she talked about it the next day made me believe that in her eyes, this is the only way she was going to save this guy's life. And I'm not saying it was a good idea or anything, but I didn't see it the way you guys saw it. Now, you could never do anything like that today at all.
No, but sometimes, John, and we're all adults here, sometimes you can use the power of sex for healing. I'm
all for that. Yeah.
But I think that's why I'm saying, I think in a way, because she was trying to seduce him prior to that.
In a way, yeah.
She flat out said, I like middle-aged men.
Right. So that's why I didn't.
And I know you're looking at me. I know you're looking at me.
Don't misunderstand me. And I said this to Ralph. It was disturbing. I found it disturbing. But I also looked at it very differently than some of you. But overall, I like the performances. I love George C. Scott anyway. I thought, and he was nominated for an Oscar for this after he won for Patton. So other people saw it that way too. It's just not my cup of tea because afterwards I just, I like to feel good after a movie. I didn't feel good after that movie. And I tell you this, it tells me stay out of the friggin' hospital no matter what you do.
Well, Paddy Chayefsky didn't. Look what happened.
Yeah. Well, I know, but that's what it made me feel
because I laughed out loud when Bernard,
Laugh out loud at what?
When Bernard Hughes does his speech at the end and he's talking about hitting the button for an hour, and those were funny lines. I thought that was funny. It was absurd.
I laughed a lot at this movie.
Yeah, and
for the first 40 minutes, I find very funny.
The whole scene in the
last
operating
40
room,
minutes I don't find funny.
where they're operating on that woman, the wrong woman, and how matter of fact everybody was about what was going on with the wrong woman.
Well, wait, Sean, that was Bernard Hughes, right?
Yeah.
So it was the same character?
Same guy, yes.
No, he was playing a double role.
Oh.
So he wasn't pretending to be that doctor. He was a different character.
That was probably a pretty bad choice.
Yeah, that was confusing.
I didn't
Yeah,
I didn't know.
pretending to be the
I said he
doctor.
had the jacket.
When I was 10 years old, I didn't get that.
No, I didn't get it at 58.
Well, you were
I
getting it at
I just
I didn't know it was the same guy.
I didn't know that. I didn't catch that.
Yeah, I just assumed he snuck into the room and pretended to be the surgeon.
right.
No, I hate the movie.
No,
was that?
wow.
What did you
Why
say?
you hate it now?
I said, no, I hate the movie.
No, I just love Chayefsky's use of language.
Well,
as
I
soon
agree.
As he walks in, it's like
It's
you're
amazing.
talking about the nursing home doctor. It's like it's axiomatic that nursing home doctors are already wrong.
I don't know what axiomatic means, so don't use a word like that. Axiomatic. You're a writer. What does that mean?
No, but I just love those. Like, just
He doesn't
it's like as soon as those nurses,
Does that mean it smelled like Axe body spray? What?
as soon as those nurses start talking to each other, I'm just laughing because it's just the absurdity of it, and also the impersonal nature of it. You know, it isn't.
You know, there's a good word. That's a very good descriptive word. Impersonal. That is a good word for that movie. It was. Yeah. You didn't really root for anybody in it. I mean, I think George C. Scott was probably the closest you got to rooting for.
I like Dr. Brubaker, the other guy who explains to what happened to Drummond's father, to Drummond.
Which one was Brubaker?
He was the one who was like in charge of that floor.
And okay.
And he would.
And it wasn't his brother. And
his brother was the patient.
No, that was Meade.
Oh, Meade.
Okay. You have to kind of watch the movie. Another thing which I did not notice the first time I saw it when I was 10, or even lately, is how Chayefsky's, because by today's screenwriting rules, this would never work. That we really don't get it. But you hear, you see Diana Rigg. She's in, you see her before you actually get to meet her.
Right.
And like Drummond, a lot of those scenes are framed around him. So it's sort of like you think, well, he's just an impersonal patient in a bed. But, he's a presence in the film even before you discover that he's not really in a coma. And even like Dr. Welbeck, who comes into the film late, he's being paged periodically throughout the film. So in a sense, he's setting these characters, it's all practically unconsciously.
It's very axiomatic.
Yeah, the way he does that, because most people wouldn't do it.
An axiom is something upon which you may rely.
Yeah,
all the time.
Yeah.
Thank you, Drew.
I here's what I don't get. I just can't. I mean, I know that George C. Scott was giving a strong performance. I feel like Ralph and Sean, when they're talking about how much they like this movie, I can't wrap my head around that. And that's not a criticism. I didn't like it. I mean, in the very beginning, it reminded me very much of St. Elsewhere. The camera, the way they were going here and there, because I was a kid when St. Elsewhere was out. So I watched like the first season a couple of years ago. So that part, but I don't understand how it was funny.
Wow. See, that's funny. I have the exact same. I knew you weren't going to like it. I knew you weren't going to like it.
But see, I do like dark humor, and I do like different things. It seems like these 1971 films, I just hate them. I don't know why.
I think you're really going to enjoy Clute.
Yeah, you're going to love Clute.
I'm going to freaking hate it.
Oh, yeah. It'd be on a double bill with this movie.
You're going to love it.
And Willy Wonka.
Right.
No,
Ralph, they did a lot of handheld, right?
I have no idea. Yes, they did.
Yeah.
You have no idea, and then you say, yeah.
Well, I mean, because I don't. Okay, I understand why you're asking me that question, but yes, they did a lot of handheld. They did a lot of cinema verite, like that scene Sean was talking about in the.
Ooh, cinema
in
verite.
the,
What does that mean?
It's axiomatic.
It's
axiomatic
kinda like
shooting,
that.
but the pan they did across all those people in the emergency room, right?
You
Stuff
should
like
ring the bell from now on if somebody uses a word none of us know.
Does that mean, I'm going to translate, does that mean telling the truth?
Well, it's supposed to be cinema that reflects real life.
Okay, thank you,
Drew
Drew.
is like a walking dictionary.
realism.
You are so smart.
Yeah.
Like a lot of movies in this era before, it's like, we lock down the camera, we're on a track, all this kind of stuff. This is sort of the proto version of what a lot of TV shows in the 90s, like Homicide, all with handheld cameras, and it puts you in the action more.
It puts you right there.
Even the Battlestar Galactica TV series that was on 15 years ago, which is an excellent series, they shot that almost like it was a documentary. Like, here's a ship and we snap zoom on it and stuff, and you would never.
You're talking about the remake, not the original.
Yes, the remake.
Yeah.
Well, with French Connection, they did the same thing.
It's supposed to be a movie that looks and feels like real life.
It puts you right there, puts you in the
But
hospital.
they didn't do a lot of handheld back then, Ralph, did they?
A shaky camera look?
Well,
Yeah,
like
well,
French
that's-
Connection, they would put guys in wheelchairs and roll them around, and
Yeah, but
they're
this was
trying to-
before French Connection.
This was 71, yeah. So I don't know the history
I'll
of
tell you,
when
it looked
handheld
lit.
started.
It looked lit like the French Connection. It had a very stark.
It was a very gloomy hospital.
Yeah.
And
I
it's
think
New
they
York
did
City.
that
They're
purpose.
demolishing that the tenement next door. And it's on location. They shot on location, right? I think.
It felt very.
They shot 2 floors of a real hospital.
Yeah. So psychiatric. It was a psychiatric building they were building. So he's hanging out the window. He's looking out the window of that hospital when he screams, "I love you."
One of the reasons I brought this film is because it goes so freaking crazy. Had it not been, it goes crazy with the rape, but then it goes crazy with the religious father and everything too. I mean, this is like totally.
Well, and they had the Native American doing the.
Yeah, that
And I didn't think any of that was funny. I'm
going to get back to what I'm going to get back.
The first half of the film is very funny.
I want to get back.
Everything they say.
I didn't realize it was supposed to be a comedy until you just told me.
Wow. I want to get back to.
Well, here's what
I'm saying. Wow.
Peter Travers said.
Wait. It's Ralph's podcast, Sean.
No, that's fine. Go ahead. What did Peter Travers
Well, here's
say?
what Peter Travers said.
Travers.
4 out of 4 stars.
Why listen to Peter Travers?
He loves everything.
Yeah. I like Travers. After Ebert, Travers is probably my favorite. This blistering, cynical satire written by Paddy Chayefsky is one of the darkest movies ever made. A cold-eye lament for a society torn apart by the upheavals of the 60s. The hospital of the title is a sinkhole of moral chaos and despair, presided over by George C. Scott, a suicidal fallen knight of a surgeon who wants to stop caring but can't. Inside the hospitals, doctors and nurses are mysteriously dying. Outside, the place is under siege by Black Panther-type radical. Then the leggy Brit Diana Rigg shows up and things get really weird.
See, now that's funny. That stuff sounds funny, doesn't it?
Funny is such a relative term, isn't it?
What I wanted to say before all this.
Ignore what's caught our eye. I mean, Sean, I wish you hadn't pitched it to us this way, but you said The Hospital is one of these movies. It's Paddy Chayefsky. It's from this era, but it loses a lot of people halfway through. So when we got to that point, I was like, oh, well, yeah, I could certainly see that.
I did say that's what I was curious about.
But
so accurate.
I want to clarify that my issue wasn't that the movie portrayed a rape. It's the way that the rape was dealt with after the movie. Because I think you can show anything in a movie and you can do whatever you want with it. I've certainly seen an awful lot of people die horribly in movies, things like that. But I just watched a movie not long ago. It's one of the best movies I've seen in a long time that I cannot recommend to everyone. It's called The Nightingale. I don't know if you guys saw The Babadook, but it's that director's.
I saw The Babadook.
Yeah. Okay, so that director did a movie.
I didn't like that one either.
That's also, I think it's also a pretty specific taste, that movie. But The Nightingale is about a woman who is essentially raped and her family is destroyed in Tasmania in the 19th century, and she wants to get revenge. Now, I've said that you think you know what that movie is about. You don't know what that movie is about in the very best way. It's really like the fact that the rape in the movie was brutal and awful to watch, but I didn't feel like, I don't know why this movie is showing that. I don't know why this movie is doing what it's doing with that, because it really, the idea of sex as healing is not the same as rape as healing.
Yeah.
I understand the reading that she thought maybe I can save his life if I let him think he takes me. I don't think that's. I don't think
you're off with saying that, John. I really don't.
I don't think so. But you know it just rammed home the problem that I was having, which is this feels like a real dehumanizing situation, but I don't have any characters that I can connect to because I'm constantly thinking, oh my God, this is great acting. But if I do that the whole movie, I'm not watching the doctor who's losing his mind tell you how he feels. And I also like how George C. Scott yells into a closet in this movie, but for Network, he yells out the window. There's a monologue like that. So it does evolve over time.
Yeah, well, I will say as a writer myself, I know how triggering suicide is, as you probably know my story, you know, how triggering suicide is and how triggering rape is.
So, I was going to ring when you said author, but I'm not going to ring when you say suicide and rape. Okay.
Yeah, that may send the wrong.
I was late on that, so I'm glad I didn't hit it.
I saw your hand reach. And
Good judgment.
Where are you going with this one, Ralph?
No, but to me, I don't think.
And suddenly we went viral.
Would not make a film about rape or suicide unless that was what the film is about.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Unless that's the central event. I wouldn't do that because I think it is a triggering event, you know, and you know, I almost killed myself. I had 2 siblings kill themselves. So, you know, I've been
know
there.
that, Sean.
And oh yeah, you should read my books. They're very, you know, they're all about suicide, all my books.
Oh my God.
And
I don't think I too, you know, had suicidal thinkings.
You didn't come as close as me, though.
No.
Oh my God! Now we're
actually competing.
You know, marriage, husband and wife.
This is some dark humor going on right now.
When you're a person that looks at life and you want to go to the edge, you know, sometimes you go to that edge.
Yeah. So,
and then you stand on the precipice and you say, "No, let me work a double."
You know, I was never one to work the double.
All right, listen, but the movie, I understand.
No, so what I'm saying is, to me, you see, I wouldn't write this movie, but you know, it is just so. To me, this is a guy that's just. By this I mean Chayefsky. It's sort of like he's tearing everything up. I mean, this is just a really, really dark view of this world, and to me, that's why this is like why it's. To me, it's an important piece of 70s film.
Yeah.
Because 70s were the only time you could never, I mean, even if you take out the rape, you could never make this film. Just the utter darkness of it. It would never be a theatrical film. You know how I can get this across to you, Ralph, of why I didn't like this movie. You know how you can't stand black and white movies? You just don't like them. I'm serious. There are certain movies you just don't like, and I
concur with Rojo on that one.
I can't relate to this. I was interested in a lot of the characters. Once the rape happened, I was like, well, George C. Scott, you can kiss off. You know what I mean? With how it all happened, you know? And you can keep looking disgusted, Ralph. I'm not. I'm thinking about black and white films right now. But I think that But I and it'll be interesting what I think about Clue, because I really, oh my God, Brad, I got a pretty good feeling. Every movie that was made in 1971 or that was made around that time, but it reminds me of how, you know, how we've talked about, for example, with Singing in the Rain. There's some overacting, we all know it, and some of the old, like the gangster films, you dirty rat, you killed my brother, you know, and stuff like that. If you can't remove yourself from that and get past it, you can't enjoy the movie that in the way that other people do. And for some reason, I don't know if it's the way the movie was made. I don't know if it's how it's the acting was. I don't know. I don't know what it is.
It was a combination. I think it was the acting.
But
I think it was the dinginess of the film and the.
Well, it's a time period. You're going from
that doesn't surprise me. There's a lot of films.
Vietnam War.
I like the French Connection.
Those movies all have a similar theme, and you know the way it's shot. Yeah,
it's called Desperate. What's the Parallax View?
Yeah,
I mean, you go through the 70s. There's all these paranoid films about the government. Right. There's all this big, you know,
it's like when
hospitals
you talk about movies. Like I like to talk about the classic movies. You talk about them in a certain way. this early 70s, late 60s, early 70s are also fit in a box of how they're made, what they're about. Like, we always say you couldn't make it today. You couldn't make some of those movies. I don't know if I agree with Sean that they wouldn't make a movie this dark, even if you take out the rape scene. I don't know if I buy that.
I don't agree with that.
I think they could.
I can't think of one. I can't think of a recent.
Some wouldn't play in China.
Well, that's
that's why you would make it for a streaming service or something.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You could make it for a streaming service. You could not make it.
Well, St. Elsewhere was pretty much, ER. I mean, those are pretty dark stories they used to tell in those episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had beautiful people like
yeah.
I think Wojo's objection, I respect the way that you're putting it, because and everybody who said something they don't like about the movie is not saying something different from this, but you're basically saying I am put off by this movie very strongly, very specifically. There's no part of that says, so they shouldn't have made it.
Right.
No one should ever watch.
No, because other people really liked it.
Right.
I can't wrap my head around how people can like it. Like there are other movies I've seen where, others here really liked it and I didn't care for it, or vice versa. I love the Hudsucker Proxy. I know you think some of you think I'm crazy, but I just do,
I love it too.
I loved it.
The thing is, I think it's important because we live in a world of cancel culture and things like that. So there are people who would say, no one should ever watch that movie, blah, blah, blah. I think that this movie...
that gets back to the rape scene again. Okay, so the rape scene...
I mean, this is a movie that won Oscars.
I know.
A lot of Oscars.
And I couldn't wrap my head around that either. But then again...
movies that won those awards 20 years later and 20 years after.
Yeah, I don't know what was it up against, too.
What, this only won for screenplay, didn't it?
No, I'm saying...
Yeah, but it was nominated. It had a lot of nominations.
The writer won Oscars. The movie was this was one of the big contenders. The English Patient is an era of
it was number 2 at the box office, too, if I remember right.
That was my question. Did this movie do well?
It did really well.
Yeah, it did well.
It was number 2. I can't remember what number 1 was.
Yeah.
Well, they loved rape back in the 70s.
No one's talking about the background of this. Like George.
I'm kidding. God Almighty.
George C. Scott was going through some serious stuff during.
Now, having said that, Wojo, I'd be fascinated for you to watch The Devil All the Time.
Oh, we're not going to talk about The Hospital anymore.
But I want to see because that's a movie that's got hardly any redeeming characters.
So you want us to watch it instead of Clute?
No, I want you to watch Clute.
Well, you can't give us 2 movies to freaking watch, all right?
I'm just suggesting. I would like to see the reaction because
and Clute's pretty upbeat, right? So we ought to feel pretty good when that's over.
Very upbeat. It's about a powerful woman making her way.
Yeah, it's like who killed Mr. Body and who is responsible and where are we going?
I'm going to hate this movie, aren't I?
We got to
hate it because you've seen it, and I am going to despise.
Wojo, I haven't seen it.
I have not seen Clute since the 70s.
I haven't seen it since I was 12 years old. I swear to God. So I can't wait to see how it affects me now because I know how it affected me then.
It may affect you differently, like the way Debbie with.
Oh, we were talking about that today with Spitfire Girl. That was one of the best.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Well, there you go. I mean, it's a good discussion. That's a good discussion.
Well, I will. You may be surprised that I brought this film in to provoke a response.
That's unusual for you.
I'm shocked. I'm downright stunned.
I felt that we were all. I felt that we were all liking the films too much,
I agree with you.
Put an end to that.
So you were thinking, you woke up one morning and thought,
like I said, nice palate cleanser.
You got off because I was going to go with Clockwork Orange.
That would have been a good addendum to Singing in the Rain. That would have been a nice mix.
You can't take Singing in the Rain and abuse it.
I tell you, I am more troubled by like the wanton rape in Clockwork Orange than in this.
Oh, that's a terrible scene. I mean, it's a gruesome scene.
Yeah, there's more than one.
Yeah. You should be more troubled by that. It's supposed to trouble you. It's supposed to be
exactly. That's the whole point.
Horrible. Right? The oddness of this film is that you're supposed to forgive this one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here's the thing. Some people's rape is another person's idea of hot sex.
Yeah. Okay. Spoken like General Hospital.
Okay. So let's just.
You know what? If they had.
That was just to provoke a response.
If they had re-edited that so that he didn't rape her, that it was just seduction.
I don't see it as a rape.
Oh, he raped her. He ripped her dress. He admitted to raping her the next morning.
No, he said
I raped
came
you.
right up
Why
and
do
said-
you want to be with me? I
Right.
raped you.
She said she got ravaged. He said I raped you.
And 3 more times.
Right. So if they had
Well,
recut that to
here's
be
the
more of a
word.
seduction, you'd have a completely different feeling. I would have too.
Oh, you know what? But here's the thing. I don't think it would have worked without this. You know, I think he was so
Didn't work
suicidal, so destroyed.
Do you remember the scene in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid where Sundance comes in and he takes what's her name and he takes her shirt off? That
Catherine
was
Ross.
essentially he's with a gun, pointing a gun at her, right?
Yeah.
That
So
was
that's-
imaginary because they knew each other. They were
Well,
lovers.
you didn't know that. You didn't know
Initially,
that.
you didn't
Right, you
know
didn't know
that,
it.
but then
So,
you realized.
I'm
know,
saying
this
in our
was-
2020 eyes, that rape scene did take me out of the film for a second. It's like, oh my God, that's a little too, but but then I get right back into it because I liked all the other stuff around that. And I loved her character. I'm going to admit, I'm staring at her legs too, going, wow, she was, Diana Rigg was beautiful.
So you'd go live in the mountains with goats for her?
I would go to the mountains with goats for her.
Gabby was very disappointed that she's like, well, he's dead. I go, well, what is he going to do? She goes, yeah, of course he's going to go off.
Nope.
The mountains.
He had his people to worry about.
Yep.
His,
his
students.
Just as we go on with rape, one more. I'll tell you a rape scene that I really don't like. Is a film you're going to bring to the podcast you're mentioning, Ralph, is Outlaw Josie Wales.
Yeah.
It's
oh yeah, the Indian lady?
The girl that he was involved with. What's her name?
Sandra Locke. Sandra
Locke. She's like almost raped.
Yeah.
But it's sort of like it's traditional. The movie is traditionally shot on a tripod, like every scene in the movie, until they get to the rape, and then they go handheld, and they're, it's purient. You know what I mean?
Purient?
Yeah.
Okay, could someone tell us what that means now?
It's like they took pleasure in filming.
Thank you, Drew.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So to me, and it's so out of character. I mean, this is a very dark movie. You know what I mean? And it's one of these films where anything can happen. And if it's dark, it probably will.
Listen, if we go back and we retroactively
a traditional Western that really takes like this gleeful.
Right, but if you retroactively go back and look at all movies that have date rapes in them, we'll be here all night.
Yeah.
No, but I'm just saying that.
How many of those
how
movies
rape
where
is
people end up
handled
falling in love with each other that started off as a date rape?
Like Grease with all that great acting.
Good acting in that film. Thank you. You're right.
I will say I do have difficulty with some of these John Hughes films and like Revenge of the Nerds.
Revenge of the Nerds, he rapes that woman with a mask on. Okay.
It's so stupid. It's like she couldn't recognize.
All right. We're done. We're done. No more rape.
I like
I don't want to talk about this anymore.
Away from
let's rate.
I love
not
that.
rape. Let's rate the film, starting with Wojo and Brad. Let me see the thumbs.
This was horrible.
please.
I hated this
Okay.
film. I'll never watch it again.
Okay.
Yippee-Ki-Yay.
Okay, Drew.
I'm going to go with the Yippee-Ki-Yay because there's so much about it that works. And then I personally can't get past, not that there's a rape in it, but the way that it's handled.
Understood.
Yeah, for me personally.
By the way, I need to say this. Everybody's opinions matter, Wojo. It's not that I'm rolling my eyes and poo-pooing. I totally understand where you're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want you to know that. John, what's your
well,
your
I don't
rating?
know if I can recommend the movie, but what I can recommend is hit the like button and the share button. And please, we really need to expand our presence out there.
Right.
No, you know what? I'm going to give it a Yippee-Ki-Yay. Again, it's not my cup of tea, but George C. Scott's performance is amazing, and I would recommend it for that. But it's not my cup of tea.
Okay, Sean, Debbie.
Well, Sean's going to be so surprised when I say this, but I like the movie for the thinking part of it. And but I'm gonna say Yippee-Ki-Yay.
Wow.
Wait, but did you go all the way
down? I don't know what that means. Is that a meh or a nay?
It's yes and no.
Okay, so I'm Yippee-Ki-Yay.
I'll tell you.
I like the performances. I mean, they were super, but
A little axiomatic. I get it.
Axiomatic.
Yeah.
Sean?
Well, I'm Yippee-Ki-Yay. I mean, I saw this film. I found it fascinating when I was 10. And,
who took you?
I will say that.
I know. I was thinking, how scarred I would have been watching when I was 10.
It was the second bill at the drive-in. He was supposed to sleep through it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, mom and dad took you.
But
right?
even that, what a
vanishing
combination of movies. I don't even get that.
It was careless.
John said, I
That's
saw
like
Clue.
Barbie the Love Bug is the first one, and then The Exorcist is the second.
Exactly.
I think I saw Clute and Flesh Gordon in the same night at the drive-in.
Well,
movie
that
theater.
makes sense.
Right.
I love Paddy Chayefsky's way with words. I mean, hell, I even like paint your wagon, so because
Is that his?
Yeah.
He wrote it.
No, he took his name off of Altered States too. Did you know that?
And I
he
like
mentioned that
film,
earlier.
too.
Yeah.
You can cut that out though, Ralph, when he mentioned it, so you can take it for your own.
I didn't hear him. I guess I was not paying attention.
Yeah, you
Sorry.
were probably rolling your eyes at Wojo at that time, but it didn't mean anything by it though.
No, that was probably when he was going.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
Wait, you know what,
I'm
Ralph? I
I'm
apologize. I
Yippee-Ki-Yay.
shouldn't be saying that because you do such a good job with this podcast.
I'm Yippee-Ki-Yay as well. That's enough. Okay, so next week we're gonna have another 70s.
I'm gonna hate the movie again.
Flash. Maybe you may.
Spoiler.
Clue. I don't know how you guys can find it. It's a tough one. If I have to, I can.
Isn't it in
one
the
for you.
Criterion Collection or something?
It may be, but that's a pay for that thing, don't
Is
you?
it on the Is it that little
So
phone?
what you're telling me is I'm going to have to pay for a crappy movie again.
Wow, that's the wrong attitude to go into this, but yes,
I'm just messing
yes.
with you.
Can I say something before we go?
Please do.
I think I want to say thank you because people were really honest about what they reacted to in the movie and sharing some of their personal experiences as I did. And I think that's really important, and thank you. And I appreciate your honesty.
Well, you're welcome.
Are you sure you're not a therapist?
I see a lot of therapists.
Oh, okay. All right. Because that sounded like a therapist thing to say right there.
Awesome. Wait a minute. Thank you, Drew. And Drew, we appreciate you.
Yeah.
Same
also,
thing.
the irony of someone being really ill with depression and the last place he should be is the hospital is.
Or on a podcast with us. It's the other one. Right. All right, everybody. Enjoy Clute. I know you will. Now, Wojo, I want you to watch it in the middle of the day, not when you're half asleep, okay? Okay.
You were watching Clute on Amazon.
Clute is on Amazon Prime?
1 o'clock.
Clute is on Amazon for $2.99.
Okay, there you go. It's worth the money, trust me.
Yeah, okay.
And I saw
since
this.
you picked it, you should give us all $2 a piece.
I saw this at a drive-in with a bunch of people, so I'll explain that next podcast.
I cannot wait.
It's axiomatic.
I had a very axiomatic evening that evening. That's for sure.
By the way, I'm glad you all watched this film.
Sean, I loved it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I thought this was a very good discussion about movies. And this is a film that's disturbing in a couple ways. And it was interesting to hear everyone's viewpoint on it. As time passes by.
That's why we do this.
Yeah.
So no other reason. We're not making any money doing this. So
you're not. I've been getting all the Patreon dollars I get.
All right, everybody. Have a safe week. And I can't wait to hear your Clute reviews. Okay?
Oh God, I don't know if we'll see.
See ya.
Bye.